So India was a really important base for the Royal Navy for many, many decades before the start of the Second World War. But as war with Japan commenced, it became even more crucial to have India as a base and contributing to the war effort. It was useful in all sorts of ways. The Indian Navy themselves already existed as a separate entity. They were quite small at the start of the Second World War, but they grew rapidly throughout the course of the war, and they contributed to combat operations from the Mediterranean as well as in the Pacific region as well. So they operated as their separate entity and quite distinct from the Royal Navy, although they did sort of replicate and mirror a lot of the things that the Royal Navy did, and obviously as allies they worked very, very closely together as well. But India also had an established network of ports and maritime facilities that could support the Royal Naval Fleet and keep them at sea, which became even more crucial after we lost Hong Kong and Singapore at the start of the war. And so the British footprint out in the Far East had shrunk dramatically to sort of the rim. So India's importance became even more important. So we're reliant on the dockyards to help in the support of repair and maintenance of the fleet, but also supply of provisions to keep the fleet at sea. But they also, to keep the fleet at sea, you need a lot of operations on land as well. And so India was also a really important base for communications out in Far East. So there are huge gaps with suddenly the increase in the traffic and communications needed to support the fight against the Japanese. There were huge gaps in the number of personnel needed, so there was a massive recruitment operation from the local population as well. And for the first time, the Royal Indian Naval Service actually recruited women into their ranks and established the Women's Royal Indian Naval Service, known as the RINS. So although they did a whole variety of roles, it was particularly within the communications branches, the signals branches and secretarial skills that they sort of plugged a lot of the gaps and grew dramatically as the war increased, and really contributed to the success of the Allied operations out in the Far East in the war against Japan.